Hello and welcome to this episode of The Moment. Today we're going to talk about division and about ending the story of separation, if it is possible or not, and what lies under the belly of civilizations, like what's going on there. I'm here today with Jeff, Neirum, and Crawdeloch also hopped on.
Well, it's good to be here. I'm glad to see you guys on here. I've seen Crawl around. Good to have you on and talk to you finally in person, man. What do you guys think about civilization? Is it ultimately good, or are the Amish onto something? Should we, throw our phones out and go pick up a hoe and start farming and forget about all this, or kind of blend the two together, maybe? Like I'm seeing a lot of off-grid people do with solar panels.
So it seems like you're proposing the technology question.
Yeah, because I guess right, and I'll go. Let's say buildings, their technology. Everything about it is really technological. So limits of technology. The Amish said we're cutting it off here, no further. This is the line in the sand. And then the Mennonites said, well, we'll use a few tractors and a car. And then, everybody else said cell phones and TikTok acceptable.
And that is a problem. It's that it's going to come down. Well, in most cases, it comes down to an arbitrary point, and it says, okay, we'll stop here. There's a really interesting definition of technology I think it's from Bernard Stiegler. Well, not technology, but he uses the term technics. And what a technic is tool for exteriorizing memory. So any tool that is developed whereby we don't have to remember everything anymore is considered a technology or a technic. So language, Stiegler considers to be the first technic. And another example would be the wheel. If you invent the wheel, then the next generation doesn't have to reinvent the wheel. So every technology allows us to, in some sense, forget something that our ancestors knew. So one of the ways we could look at the technology problem is this exteriorization of memory. That we've gotten to the point where we don't really have to know what our ancestors, we don't really have to know a lot about what our ancestors were thinking. Because we have these tools that they produced, and then we just use them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one way of looking at our relationship to technology, is that it's a forgetting. Right? And I think Heidegger talks about this as well. It's that Heidegger looks at some other philosophical concepts, such as being. We've even forgotten what it means to just be, and instead we can only conceive of being as beings that be, instead of being itself. So I guess that's a kind of general overview of the kind of the way that this school of thought thinks about it. It's that we have to kind of recover something that we've forgotten, that our ancestors were able to coexist with the technologies of their time, whereas with us, there's this tension that's developed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, personally, how I look at it is also that with regards to technology, it's also an adding on of another layer besides like the being that you are. Like you put another layer and another layer and another layer of different technological means around oneself, but it also at the same time starts to create like a boundary between you and the rest of the world, and in some sense I think it's starting to cut people off more and more in the sense of like it isolates also. It's like and leads to separation in that sense.
And we can bring in another, not so obscure, but whatever. People might roll their eyes if I bring in another another thinker here. But Baudrillard, simulacra, right, where you get these layers of references, and then you don't even forget what the original reference was. Right? So it's like,
Yeah, what's the mental horizon of an average brain? I think is where that's getting at. And can you expand that? And if you do expand it so far, you lose focus and you start sounding crazy.
yeah. And I guess one of the things that's happening in modern times is this kind of technological schizophrenia, right? Where you have these social media personalities, and I mean, like, just among ourselves, within ourselves, like we have who we are in social media, then we have who we are at work, then we have who we are in different friends groups, then we have who we are with our family, and we're kind of become decentered in that sense. We've kind of lost. So the division is not only happening on a social level; it's also happening on the individual level.
True. Yes, Crawdeloch?
Okay, I'm just testing if this works, so greetings. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. What's up?
Yeah, just just it reminded me of the hyper acceleration of the persona that I heard somewhere, that during times like these, the persona from Jungian terms, it accelerates, and means that people fall into that more and more. It also comes from the Heidegger's authenticity, how it relates to that. Anyway. And about the earlier topic was about the Cartesian split, the object subject. People kind of, they have been split from the being in the anyway. But like I said, I'm not very good speaker. I rarely speak aloud in anyway now in English, but I'll let you guys continue. I just wanted to know if this works. So
No, keep on keeping on, man. We're here for ideas. I mean, I am anyway.
Yeah.
And I can understand you really well. Your English is great.
okay, thanks. But I'll just, you can go on for a bit, and I'll listen, and I'll interject something if comes to mind.
Right on.
Yeah, but in that sense, like, yeah, one would like get lost in one's social mask in that sense. And in that sense, if you would be individually be within that within the persona, so to use the Jungian term, to within that social mask, you kind of lose connection to who you are in that sense.
Yeah, thanks. That was I was thinking about, that the acceleration of persona. That it means that if you go into the persona more because of the cultural currents, so to speak, then it automatically means that you stray from authenticity. So yeah.
The question that I would put forth is that, does there need to be this tension between, as you put it, the persona and the authenticity? Does there need to be this tension between kind of having a coherent self-identity and your identity in the social realm? Like these two exist harmoniously.
I mean,
yeah, it could, but I think it's a sign of times that it's because of the cultural currents that are going on, acceleration into the, I'm not sure what term to use, but anyway, it's the tension arises because of the surrounding environment, and it's hard to reconcile.
Yeah, one thing that I think about social media is that it's a bit like driving. That when you're in a car and another driver cuts you off, there's this reaction that's very hard to hold back where you just get really angry and then you want to honk, you want to tell them, "Hey, buddy, that's I'm not cool with that." And sometimes you even yell at the person, you even cuss at them.
Mm-hmm.
It's because there's this layer between you and the other driver of depersonalization. Same thing happens on social media, where
True.
I don't think if we interacted with the people that we argue with on social media in real life, it would be the same thing.
Yeah, I definitely don't think that it would be, because then you would actually be dealing with the person, and it's very easy to, in that sense, like, yeah, don't really have to deal with the full being of like who they are. You just deal with whatever like you see of them, their persona, and it's just basically it ends up being like one persona attacking another. It's like the masks fighting in that sense.
Right, yeah.
A
But-
bunch of ghosts. Yeah, they're not even real. I think that's true. And also, I want to say, address something you said, Jeff. The schizophrenia, people's different personas on this media, this profile, even this Discord chat or that Discord chat. You has switched names. I've been the administrator of some other Discords, and people have the same IP address, and they're doing the same, but it's just a different name. But I also think there's a whole lot of people that are the same person on the internet, at home with their family, and at work. I think there's still a lot of people that are normal. They might not put their real name on there so they don't get doxxed at work or something, but they're who they are. They're not acting like someone else. I've met a lot of people like that, and made them moderators in in my groups, and and then they some people don't even want to participate, but they're just cool people, and nice to be around.
From personal experience, I got to say that the work one is particularly difficult for me.
Oh yeah, it depends on your
work.
like.
Yeah.
I'm around a bunch of creative, hippie type people that can't exist in the normal. I guess it's not really
Corporate.
fringe society anymore. It's kind of in the mid rim in Star Wars terms. We're not quite the outer rim anymore. We're the mid rim, and we're not so crazy to go along with everything in the cities, but kind of in the middle, doing whatever we want.
Yeah, Jeff?
Yeah, just to finish that thought, I used to work. I used to be a videographer in a law firm. They did online continuing studies. So I was always surrounded by these corporate lawyer types who are, differently aligned spiritually, differently aligned culturally, and you know of a different generation as well. And so, you know, like I didn't really know how to act around them, so I just, there's a stark difference between the way I would behave around them and the way I would behave among people I was familiar with, right? And so maybe that's another function of high civilization, is that becomes these environments where we do have to persona to interact in them. Whereas if you look at more older or less technologically developed civilizations, maybe that was less so the case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The main thing with that is to have that balance between those two states of somewhere being able to be oneself and at the same time fulfill one's social roles in the other sense. And the thing is that the balancing between those two, the mediating between those two, would have been done in the manner of someone who would either in society fulfill such a mediatory role for the person, or they would have done it themselves in that manner. And then one gets into the territory of like priests and shamans, psychologists.
Yeah. If you guys will allow me to be Christian for just a minute. In the Christian conception, Christianity does answer this tension, does address this tension in its own unique way, which is that God made you in His image, also to kind of fulfill. He gives each of us different gifts, and he makes us to kind of fulfill those gifts, right? To use those gifts to their full potential. And so the way to resolve the tension between your social role and your individual is to accept God's will, right? Is to accept God and let Him work through you to fulfill your potential. So the tension is the tension finds unity in the church. So you have the individual and you have your social obligations, and that comes together through the church. And for non-Christians, you can kind of take that, you can kind of parse the Christianity out of it, and instead of the church, like you said, there's shamans and there's other institutions in society that try to reconcile, to bring society back into a whole, right? As right now we're seeing kind of breakdown. Well, we're definitely seeing the breakdown of Christianity's influence on Western society.
Yeah.
And we're seeing new attempts rise up to kind of reconcile the individual versus society. Both on the left and the right,
Yeah.
There's a type of symbolism taken off, like Jonathan Pageau talks about. I think he's onto something with that. And Jordan Peterson was onto that. And before that, Carl Jung was onto that, who Peterson cites often. There's something going on with our ancient symbols that is reawakening some circuitry that we abandoned. I don't know what it is, but we're mixing it with modern technology to enable us to do whatever we want. Primarily, as I said, off grid. This seems to be a priority for a lot of people. How do I get away from the mainstream? How do I get off the grid? How do I sustain myself? Not in a political way, but in a way of taking control of their life. If I'm going to work hard all day, why don't I work hard so I get an abundance eventually instead of debt? A lot of people see that, I think debt has kind of killed civilization. We could get into that. But there's something else people are working towards now. They're building something. It's not a cult either. It's families. It's people just taking off and growing food. Hydroponics is popular, because it's easy, automatic. Here's your food. It's solar powered. It's kind of crazy. It's just PVC pipes, a pump, and you could use a Raspberry Pi, and everybody knows how to use those. And if you don't, you could watch a video and learn in a week.
And then you can add a fish tank, right? You can recycle that water into a fish tank, and then you can eat the fish.
Yeah, I mean, the sky's the limit. Why not?
Yeah.
I would say that you can hardly blame people for wanting to find an escape from modern society.
Mm-hmm.
But I think also
there is one for the first time, I think, though. I think that's what's different. There is an escape pod that we can make in the form of a homestead. Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, our primal yearning is for community. So we do want to get away from this society. After we cross that threshold, I think there will be this longing for community, right? To kind of rediscover how are we in communion with one another.
Mm-hmm.
I can speak on that in great detail in a little bit if you want me to, because I'm a community organizer in my town, and there's been a resurgence of interest lately.
Yeah. Are you in a small town?
Yes.
Right. Well, yeah. Let's hear it.
Okay. Well, I'll go ahead. So I noticed that last Christmas, for the first time in a long while, we had a Christmas parade. And it was just real simple, just a few fire trucks, some people dressed up as Santa, and, it was like, what do you kids want for Christmas? Here's some candy canes. And I saw all kinds of people out and excited and really into it. And I was like, huh. So I went and I talked to everybody at each of the stores that were on the main street where the parade was. I'm like, hey, that parade was pretty cool, right? Like, yeah, it was pretty cool. Let's do more stuff. I'm like, let's do more stuff. Let's sing Christmas carols. And they're like, what? Okay. And so everybody got together and we all sang Christmas carols, and it sounded terrible, but we all had a really great time. And everybody went to the different stores, shopped and bought things, and then we hung out at the coffee shop after and got to know each other. And then we planned a New Year's Eve party together. And then we had it at one of the shops on Main Street, and then they made a bunch of money. And now we're planning on having a concert this summer and doing Golden Girls trivia bowls at the park. And now a bar was like, hey, have your trivia bowl here and drink. And everybody's like, great, let's go do that. And so all of this started from me adding people to a Facebook group chat that lived in my town. I didn't know any of them. I'm new to this town. I've lived here like 2 years. I got sick of the city life, and I came to the mountains and lived in a small town. And I noticed nobody just really talks to each other. It's always like political or something. And so I kept it short. I kept it sweet. I just said, hey, we're going to be singing Christmas carols. You should come out. And I had people that weren't even, Christian people coming out there interested in doing it because their mom did it, or they just want to see other people. It's not the point. The point was, this is a neutrally charged. It's not, there's no agenda. Hey, do you want to hang out? And then all of this other good stuff happens, like the businesses get stimulated and everybody's in a good mood. And then people want to come hang out in our town instead of that town over there where they're not doing cool stuff. And so it's just been fascinating to me to see. I just threw some ideas out there, and then people said, hey, I got this, I got that. Hey, this person knows how to sing. And then boom, 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 boom. People feel good about doing stuff for the town. I don't know. And it just took somebody saying, hey, wasn't that a fun parade we had? That was cool, right? Let's do something else.
That sounds really nice. And I would like to move to your town, actually, if you're advertising.
Awesome. It's working.
Yeah. Sarius, are you Dutch? By chance?
Who, me?
Basarius.
Yeah, but I'm not there anymore.
But because recently on my channel we did a stream of this concept of Hasidic coziness.
Yeah.
Am I saying it right? Hasidic? Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what Neirum's story kind of brings to mind. It's a recapturing of. I don't know if coziness is probably the best English translation, but
yeah, but it's just it's like type of like atmosphere that's there, and it's also it's like a get together of people in that sense. I would see it
warmness,
as yeah,
right?
a warmness and a celebration of coming together of different people in that sense.
Yeah. And in Chinese we have a similar word, yi lao or ru now. And it's very similar, and it's just this atmosphere, this like liveliness, this like love, you know. And I think that's one of the key things that the world has lost today. And this goes back to the technology question as well, because
Yeah.
technology, as Heidegger would say, we've become inframed by this view of technology, where technology is created for the sake of creating more technology more efficiently. So we become a world that's entirely focused on technological development and efficiency. Where we look at something like a waterfall and it's like, hey, we can dam that up and create electricity, and then we can create more computers, and we can create, more computing power. Whereas, why can't we just let the waterfall be the waterfall? Because we become inframed. We simply, the Faustian mind, as Spengler would say, we can't let things just be. Or even think of things other than their technological function.
Well, there's instances of technology that you can use harmoniously too. I mean, I don't know why you couldn't put a water wheel under a waterfall and get a similar result. Like, why you got a hyper pressurized turbine? Maybe we need to lower our power requirements for our technology, like LEDs. That's a great innovation. Like, take this thing, it uses a fraction of the electricity. That's good stuff there. There's just ways we can go about it. I don't know why we gotta ham fist everything, so to speak.
The technological maximalists will be like, well, then you're leaving, power unused.
Yeah.
The water wheel doesn't capture as much as the dam.
We got to learn how to play with nature, even with each other on a fundamental level. That's what Piaget said. Child psychologist. I think he's right about a lot. And I think we've talked about that before, about kids when they used to play on the playground. They used to role play a lot more often. Now they're just on their phone. They're not talking to each other. Little boys with sticks acting like they're guns and pine cones or grenades, and there's not little girls acting like they're chef, playing chef or something and making pies or whatever. You know what I mean? That's gone.
Preschool, our teachers used to play along too. When we were playing guns, finger guns, they would come by and say, "Oh, broke your gun." I broke your gun. The game is over.
Yeah, they would imagine with you. They would help you through the process of growing up. Playing is growing up. If you can't play well with others, you can't work with others. You can't function. You don't know you don't know what the protocols are.
Yeah, I mean, and in that sense, you can also not cooperate with others well if you don't really know like how to interact with other human beings, or the world for that matter. Because I mean, that's also one thing that you learn by doing that is to how to interact with the world.
Yeah.
Also, if we lose the playfulness, then there has to be some other protocol that takes its place, and then we get this kind of technocratic, machine-like rules-based system.
Yeah,
it's cold and soulless, and it's like, oh, do X, then do Y, then I think it was Michel Foucault who talked about societies of discipline. So be at work, clock in at 9, then go to the cafeteria at 12, clock out at 5 and drive home to the suburbs, right? Everything becomes strictly regimented. There's no playfulness. There's no spirit, human. There's no soul to it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally. And for the kids like me that couldn't tolerate that shit, I quit school. I got out of there. I left, and I went an alternative way. And I started college when I was 16. When everybody else was still in high school, wait until they're 18 to graduate like they're supposed to. I realized I can quit, go get my GED, I go straight to college before I'm 18 years old. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do that. I had some bad words to say, but I was like, this is stupid. I'm going to leave school. I can't do this. And I just went off and did whatever I wanted. And, met other people like that. I met some homeschooled people that did that. They just found out when they're 16 they can take their GED and they can go straight into college, and those people didn't adhere to any schedule, and they go off and make businesses and do all kinds of crazy stuff. Whereas the people that I guess finish the regiment, they feel more trapped later in life. I've found. I don't know. What do you think about that?
And the school regimen is just to prepare you for the corporate regimen.
Yeah, to listen to and work for someone else instead of do your own thing and make your own money in whatever way you see fit. I think it clips your wings if you think you have to finish. But that's just my experience. Some other schools I've heard are good. You had good teachers, but my school systems that I've been to several states, moved around when I was a kid, and they were all terrible. Very bad. No oversight, no punishment. A lot of bad things went on.
And also, this phenomenon is not just happening in the West. In fact, there's arguments to say that it's even worse in East Asia right now, where just this. So an example, because a lot of my family's from Hong Kong, the school and work culture. So here's some details. There's a huge emphasis on getting into a good school in a lot of East Asian countries, where the parents, they actually have to start signing their kids up for kindergarten when the kids are 2 years old. There's these huge lines around the block for good schools, and then there's an interview process too for the kids when they're 2 or 3 years old. And the reason why is because if you don't get into a good school, you won't be able to get into a good university, which means you won't be able to get into a good corporate job. So, you know, speaking of
It's kind of
clipping
like
of the
grooming.
wings, kind of like what?
Grooming. I'm sorry. Go on.
Yeah. Grooming. Yeah, the clipping of the wings, as you mentioned. It's like, yeah, these kids are getting their wings clipped very early. And the work culture in a lot of East Asian countries, in China recently, they've been talking about 996, work from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week. And finally, people are, finally some people objected, right? They were like, no, that's BS, right? But in a lot of East Asian, especially large cities, work culture is very similar to a 996. Officially, you're actually off work at 6 o'clock, but you're expected to stay. Nobody dare leaves the office in Hong Kong until the boss leaves. Nobody wants to be the first to leave. Quite frequently,
Yeah.
you're only getting
The same
paid up
is true
till.
over here too. I got a buddy that's an accountant.
Yeah. And so you're only getting in Hong Kong, you don't get paid overtime. So you're getting paid up till 6, but you have to wait until 7:30 to leave. And then when you get home, there's actually more work to do. And people just take this for granted now.
I think there was wrong language. Sorry. I think there was a documentary on YouTube about the 996, and it was quite interesting about how it's expected of workers to work without paying overtime.
Yeah. Then we're also seeing the phenomenon of the dropouts in East Asia, especially in Japan, the hikikomori, where there are millennial men, quite frequently millennial or young Gen X, and they've decided I don't want to do that, so I'm just going to stay in my room and watch anime. And you can't really, you can't really fault them for thinking that.
Well, yeah, they keep getting food, and there's free stuff. There's not an incentive really, and I'm not saying that we take that away at all. What I'm just saying is that that's how humans are. They become like hamsters in a little glass apartment box or something with their hamster wheel, and it's a sad thing that I hope they'll realize and I don't know do something they like. They don't have to go to a 9 to 9 job or whatever. They can, a lot of people work online. A lot of people hit the road and do crazy stuff. Like I said, I quit school when I was 16 and I got my GED like a month later. I was like, wow, I didn't know I could do this. I didn't know these options are out here. Why is this discouraged? And then I got a car and I hit the road, man. And I just did whatever I wanted and found experiences and did things at 16 years old. And everybody else is at school, have to raise their hand to go take a dump somewhere. They have to raise their hand to go do anything. You can't go get a hamburger whenever you want. There is an extended childhood encouraged to groom you into the cult of industry, business. I don't know what to call it now. Modern living, consumer culture. That's the word I'm looking for. Consumer culture, to work just enough to buy shit to keep this company afloat. And there's not a real meaning. We're not building a huge basilica. We're not building a huge, great work of art. We're not building the pyramids. We're not, you know what I mean? We're not doing something great anymore. We're just making shit and selling it on TV or whatever,
Yeah, and I think looking back at what I had found out today because of something I had been sent by a friend, he was talking about the beginnings of civilization, and that there were new findings, archaeological findings, that basically now blew the old theory that one had completely to smithereens. That the basis of civilization is agriculture, then all of the other things formed, which isn't the case at all, it seems now. They actually had found that the temple complexes way back in time. There's one in Turkey, Göbekli Tepe, it is called. That one was created by hunter-gatherers working together, and they first built that thing. Eventually, after the cult had formed and roped all these different hunter-gatherer tribes into it through like shared mythology, they basically started living in one place.
I had heard this theory before as well.
Commune, man.
Yeah, like people were nomadic, then they would build temples where they actually encountered spirits, right?
Mm-hmm.
They would build these shrines. So this is where Thor is, right? And then they would, so the nomadicism, the paths that these nomadic tribes would follow would always circle back to the same temples, and then that's how it became settled.
Mm-hmm.
Have any of you guys seen Conan the Barbarian and the scene with the snake temple and all the people with flowers in their hair?
No, I don't recall that. I've seen it, but I don't recall it.
So when Conan goes to the snake temple to save the princess, all of these people are, getting naked and putting these robes on and these flowers. and the priests, the snake priests, are saying, empty yourself, and they all hum together, and they're going, we're empty, and they're building this giant snake temple with a mouth that they're going in, and it's like it's eating them. And this cult built this great monument, though, and built all this great stuff, and listened to, Darth Vader, because, it was played by Earl Ray Jones, James Earl Jones. Sorry, I got people mixed up.
Yeah, but the thing why I wanted to bring that up is that the myth, basically, that those, well, shamans or priests or however you would want to call them, what they were, they that myth kept those different hunter-gatherer groups and people of different temperaments together, and they had a vision, a goal, what they wanted to achieve. And I think that's kind of the big problem here, what is going on, because there is not such a goal anymore, and there's nothing to like nothing greater to achieve anymore, other than this mediocre things, or like the smaller things. There's not a big vision anymore. Now that's gone. Things are gonna fall apart. People will split off and go do their own thing till I would assume something along the lines of that would emerge again, like a community surrounding some form of idea, that a shared goal to work towards, something that would actually unite people in that sense. But the thing is that, I think that I don't know, politically, I don't really see how that would play out at all. I think it starts to fall more into the category of really what you would call religion, or like something of a more transcendent nature, because I mean, yeah.
I think one of the problems politically is that politics tends to all be built on resentment and tension.
Mm-hmm.
And in that sense, what that leads to is actually individualism. It leads to this, I'm doing this because it benefits me in the long run. This political order benefits me more than that political order. And so it really does become about the self and not about the collective. Even though there's a claims by a lot of political movements that they're about collectivism, fundamentally they are about power, like the ability for the self to exert the will on the world. So it's about self-aggrandizement. Even like a full communist, ultimately what they want is a political party to do their bidding. Whereas with religion, there is this idea of sacrifice. There is this idea of service.
Mm-hmm.
Most religions, I don't even know about most, but many religions, there is this idea that you're here in service to God, right? So it's not about your will, it's about the will of the God, and how can you serve. And
That's exactly what I was going to say. I was just thinking about like some weird demon cult ritual in a basement, trying to summon a demon to do its bidding, and then of course by the end it eats them instead to power whatever the demon really wants to do. And that is, I've never made that connection, but by you saying that, all these images flashed across my head. I'm like, yeah, that's what that is. I recently watched this Netflix show called Archive 81, where they're doing this in a basement, and this dude's recovering these videotapes of a demon cult. And it's the same thing. This it could be a political person up there that they're summoning out of the ether or whatever. That's fascinating.
Yeah, and the connection is there, exactly. It's like they're summoning this beast, this demon, hoping that it'll do their bidding, and in the end, it's the demon that ends up eating them. Yeah, the political movement. So with Someone like Lenin wrote on the eve of the revolution, "Here we go, comrades. Here comes our classless, stateless society. The revolution is upon us." And then if Lenin showed up 30 years later and saw what the USSR had become, he would be like, what happened, guys? Where's the revolutionary spirit? Why did we become a totalitarian state?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In that sense, like I've started to notice, like with political ideologies, like this the devouring nature of it in of itself, that there isn't like first, not for all people, but for some people it starts to become like it basically fills them up to some degree, and they become like it's agents in that sense. And I think that if you look at like a proper religion, a proper if it something that's set up properly in that sense, like a good structure would find for all the different people their role to use their gifts, and for the surface of something higher. And but there is not that devouring aspect. There's still that well, I mean, Christians would call it free will, but there's still that agency there, that agency present, that the person is still like.
Yeah, Christianity is certainly one of the religions that doesn't call upon you to erase yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
That rather that Christianity wants to see you reach your fulfillment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to not have this tension, because ultimately, you know, your greatest fulfillment of the individual is also the greatest service to the community at large.
Mm-hmm.
You know, at first you have to, humble yourself, right, to something.
Yeah.
And second, you have to, and through that humbling is where you learn to love one another. And in Christianity, we also pray for our enemies, right? We have to, we have to kind of get over this, like, us versus them, and we have to impose our will on them, right? All these tensions that exist, that are created by our political structures. Well, not even I mean, the kind of us versus them has been around, for quite a long time, right?
True.
True. But, you know, um, ultimately these tensions just lead towards more and more of that summoning that demon, right? That comes to devour us.
Yeah, because
I think.
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, but in the end, like that's what I started to see. I started to be like, holy shit, this is like Kronos and Zeus, and it's just like this old myth of like Kronos devouring his children. And it was like, fuck, like what, like, oh shit, this is what we're playing. I'm like, oh no, not this.
Yeah, and before Kronos, it was his father, right, who did the same thing.
Yeah,
something similar, right?
something similar.
So
yeah,
it's this pattern, are we just going to continue eating eating our children so that they don't that's basically
I don't think so. I think the story of Christianity, let's say Christianity would be Kronos or something. Just for the sake of argument. And then, oh, here's the Protestants, all of the children of Christianity. What does Christianity do? We kind of let the Protestants go do their own thing way over here, and we don't have a Christian war. And I think about that sometimes. Like, what if we would have had a big holy war over the Protestant Reformation, and us just going the other way? All of Martin Luther, we're just going to go do this, and like guns and nukes and stuff involved still to this day over the issue. Why didn't that happen? I think it's because maybe these people might go figure something out. Maybe everything was kind of dying in the church and people were trying to seek new ideas, going maybe even going into this symbolism direction, because the orthodoxy happened. I don't know a lot about them, but they seem to be into symbolism, and instead of having a pope, they broke it up into a patriarchy and kind of tried to break up the power. So
I'm actually Orthodox, so.
Okay, cool. Maybe you can tell me a little bit about it. It seems very interesting to me.
Yeah. Well, the
What would you
Orthodox
say is
view
the main
is,
difference?
well, papal infallibility was one big issue among a number. Actually, well,
Yeah.
the early schism was over various different practices between the East and the West, right? And the Orthodox view is that there was always this collegiate structure for the bishops, and so whenever there was a bishop who was kind of way off base and would refuse to kind of come back into communion, then he was excommunicated. He would be out of communion, right? So our view is that the Bishop of Rome is out of communion with the Church. Bishop of Rome being the Roman Catholic Pope. Whereas their view is that,
and specifically, communion is the process of having a conversation to kind of air out the demons, so to speak.
well, being one church.
Okay.
So our view is that all the other bishops, so the Patriarch of Moscow and the Patriarch of Greece and etc., they're in communion with one another. So they consider themselves one body, right? And if there's disagreements between them, they will come together to try to hash out those disagreements. As we view the schism that happened in 1054, the Bishop of Rome out of communion, and actually at the time, most Christians believed that it was going to be temporary because that actually had happened before. There had been falling outs between bishops before, so most Christians assume that this is just another momentary falling out. And there were many attempts to kind of get back together, but it kind of didn't pan out. And then by the time the Crusades came along, you know, the West did send reinforcements to come help the Byzantine Empire, but it was kind of like this whole mess after, I think it was the third or fourth Crusade, where
True.
The West wanted to, after helping the Byzantine Empire, they wanted to kind of set up their own political structures there, and eventually they sacked Constantinople, and that was pretty much after that. It was like, oh, they're not getting back together.
Yeah, they become Istanbul.
Yeah, that was after with the Ottomans. Yeah,
That was
Istanbul.
Yeah, way later they built it on top of the ruins. But I think it was important that that the band broke up. The Christian band. We had to go our separate ways, and I'm a metaphorical person, so we had to go off and farm our own fruits. And after 1,000 years, I think everybody's examining the fruits of each person's labor, each group, and for some reason, a lot of people are funneling into orthodoxy. You have good fruits that you've produced through time, through your arguments with one another, the church fathers, and trying to hash things out in good faith is what I'm getting is the central attraction to orthodoxy. You guys seem to have some, like, you're trying to go into the any kind of confusion in good faith, trying to understand it is what my encounter with people of orthodoxy are like. What do you think about it? Would you say that's a central thing that's kind of attractive about it for you, or what is it for you?
So within the Orthodox community, the conversation that I have, a lot of people tell me, and clergy, priests tell me this too, is that it wouldn't make sense any other way from a Christian perspective to force people or to be forceful, show them the proper way, right? That's not what Jesus would have done. you know, Jesus showed us the way through love, right? Through healing. And Jesus would heal people not only spiritually, but also physically, right? And the church is a place of healing. So I guess that's kind of why you see the Orthodox Christians using this approach of love and understanding it, and I guess good faith, as you say, right? And the Orthodox view, yeah, and the Orthodox view is also that the Orthodox Church is the fullness of the faith, is the fullness of the truth, but that doesn't mean that that other communities don't have truth.
Yeah, I've noticed that with the Orthodox channels that I followed, they're like, "Hey, look at this." There seems to be a lot of symbolism of, as I've said before, and I think that's central to a whole lot of humanity. We're very symbolic and ritualistic, and I've been to a lot of football games and baseball games, and it's like a ritual in of itself. And particularly music concerts. Those have replaced religion. And now that we have the internet and we can all talk to each other and post things, we're moving into a memeified religion, a symbolic religion. I think we've been in it for a while. It's very interesting.
Yeah, you brought up Jonathan Pajot earlier, who's also Orthodox, and he talks about a lot of this stuff. And yeah, you can think of worship as attending. Even in Orthodox worship, the word attend comes up, and it's basically everybody getting together and attending to what is highest, right? Which for us is God. And that works, that manifests itself fractally on lower levels. So sports games, once again, it's attending. Everybody comes together to attend, and on highest, Jonathan Pajot uses the National Hockey League as an example. On highest, the highest thing that hockey fans attend to is the Stanley Cup. The Stanley Cup is the symbol for like the peak of the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
And then and then it goes lower into like individual teams.
That's
And
another thing. Orthodoxy seems to have a terminology nailed down to even talk about it, where at times I'm struggling to have a framework of, I'll reference this author and that author, and people are like, I don't know who that is. And then you got to go into a deep. So, that's a big plus there of being in a big group of people with all these books that these church fathers have written. I've tried to delve into a little bit of it, but I don't. It'd probably take me 10 years, man, to figure it all out. So I've had to just read the cliff notes.
And that's another aspect of the fullness of Orthodoxy, is that we're not only connected to the church in the present time, we're connected all the way back through this lineage of writers, going back to the patristic fathers.
Yeah,
going back to the apostles, and then going back to Jesus. Yeah.
But yeah, but that's with the stuff that had been sent today. Kind of the one of the major important conclusions was that exactly the symbolism is key into all of it. Basically, that keeps everything together within society.
Yeah. It's this collective attention and connection. So to go back to the hockey example, hockey also has, I mean, it's not equivalent, obviously, but kind of a Jesus figure in Wayne Gretzky. Every sport kind of has one, the great one, right?
Kobe Bryant, kind of like, everybody lost it when he died too.
Yeah, or Michael Jordan, right? Yeah. And it's like he's the manifestation of the logos of the sport, right? The great one is the pure, like, kind of like the ultimate manifestation of the greatness manifested from the Stanley Cup, And so every hockey player, every good quote unquote orthodox hockey player aspires to be like Wayne Gretzky. And that's what we're missing today in modern society. It's like, not only do we not have a logos that centers everything, we also don't have a figure now that Christianity is broken down, we don't have a figure to say he's the manifestation of that logos or logi.
Yeah.
It does still very much exist in the sports world. So that's why the culture of each sport is still very coherent.
True. Yeah, but it's just it doesn't seem to be enough to keep things together on the grander scale. It's like, bread and games, and it's like all nice and all, but yeah, that's in that sense a big problem. And if you then take all the whole political stuff into it, that's like a really big source of the division that is currently happening. It's like, yeah, it's
very
yeah.
It's very difficult in politics too, because sure, you'll get politicians who kind of say the things that you want to hear. They kind of, in a way, they do represent what you're thinking. Even an example like Trump, right? He did represent a lot of how people were feeling. He did really capture the sentiment of a lot of people. But at the same time, he is not the manifestation, right? Most Trump supporters would willingly admit that he's the guy, he's a representative, but he's not like truly our representative, because at the end of the day, most of his supporters were middle American people living in smaller towns, and Trump here's this like New York City Democrat.
Yeah.
So he was never truly the manifestation of that logos, right? I think it's the same way with most politicians. So
yeah, they all hang out together and play tennis and drink on their yachts. They're all friends, man. And what did George Carlin say? He said, "It's a big club and you ain't in it." It still holds true. We're not in their rich people club or whatever political control elite Machiavellian bullshit. We're just normal people trying to figure out what life is.
Yeah, but I don't know. Like personally, I've come to the point where I'm kind of like, politically, I don't really see any solution being there. And also the thing is that let's say we would have some political figure at the top. I mean, it would just become another version of the emperor worship that we had all the way back in ancient Rome, like when Rome's central myth started to collapse.
Totally, it's just patty cake. We're playing with ourselves until we self-individuate. And my question that I've got is, how many of us can self-individuate, and what would that do to society? What could we do? If we are individuals off grid, not needing to pay bills or our taxes, we don't have to pay them because we don't have incomes anymore. We're working off the land. What could it look like if we are individuals? All of us, or most of us, say 50% of us, can become self-individuated and be independent and off grid. Could we have a civilization?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, if you look at that, if we would go, it would just be dispersing of the different people. I mean, a fraction. Or
I would say that.
Yeah.
I would say that we have to go look back at that the nomadic example again.
Yeah.
Where there were these individual bands, but again, they weren't individuated because they were able to unite and attend around collective worship, right, around these holy sites, these temples. So I think there would have to be something like that. Even if you have this entirely fractured anarcho-capitalist society or whatever, there would still have to be this kind of coming together around that which is held highest, the holy, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's gonna be this. I don't know. I don't know what the alternative would look like.
Yeah, there would be no nation, just tribes, fragmented.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, but in that sense, like let's say if let's say we would let's say it would fracture all. I do think that it's in our nature, um, to like create something that we put up as highest. And I think the key thing in this is like, what are we going to put there as well? It's like what?
Because we have to.
Yeah.
We have to put something on highest. There's just kind of no escaping it. Otherwise, how do we judge anything? Everybody has a concept of what is good, what is bad, what is valuable, what is not. Otherwise,
I think we need a starting point. I think it would help if we had a starting point, like, and I'm going to use another analogy, like with the Amish I was talking about earlier. The wheel and the plow are still acceptable pieces of technology to them, to the people above them, the Mennonites, and the plow and wheel are still acceptable to us. I think we need to find out what is the wheel and plow of this highest. And that's, I don't know if we can get better than that. Maybe people in the future can get better at a better resolution picture of that, but I think we're building it already. A lot of people are like, okay, symbolism, here's the wheel, and now we're getting a plow together and we're going to make a technology or some kind of tool to assist us in this religious quest that the world is on now, and some groups are going to orthodoxy, other groups are going to I don't know, communism. And other groups are going to just science is the only answer. And other people are like, I'm a new atheist or something. And then other people are like, I'm just a hippie. I'm just hanging out. I don't know what. And then other people, Alan Watts. Alan Watts has a lot of things. So you know what I mean? People are all together. We're like, here's a wheel we all agree on. And we use this wheel too over here in our neck of the woods. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah. And from kind of to put myself in the shoes of Jonathan Pajot, I think what he would say is that for the West, for a long time, Christ was center, right? And then what happens is that there's this like fractal playing out from so if Christ is at the top of the mountain, when that flows down, there becomes this like fracturing out into the margins. Then you get all the political movements of the 20th century and so on, and it keeps going down and down. But Christ will always be at the top of the mountain, and the Orthodox Church, we would say that anytime you guys want to come back, please come back.
It's been a nation and God for a long time, and you spoke of sports earlier. So sports is the nation's kind of vanguard or representation of its fighting force in a peaceful time. So they die in.
Yeah, I've had this I don't know, kind of waking dream, I guess, at a football game where everybody was getting up and cheering, and everybody's breath. It was cold out. Everybody's breath went up in the air, and I could almost see like this cloud of something that people were conjuring. It just felt really strange to me, and I could feel this energy in the air, this charge, and I'm like, something's going on here that I don't think I'm tuned into, but I can feel it. I've been to other places and felt into stuff like a music concert or something like that. But definitely, if people find their frequency is what I'm finding. They for sports, they get way crazier into it. Even though I see them in church that same week, they don't get up and be as crazy, and energized about the Lord or anything. And it depends. I don't know. But I noticed that. I thought that was strange how it's accepted here, but in most churches I go to, it's, oh no, this is We're not going to get that excited. But again, I've been to some that are very exciting and loud.
Yeah, you should look into the example that comes to mind is chess in the Cold War between United States and Soviet Union. That I mean, in national sports, when chess is a sport kind of, so it acted as a vent of tensions. Sort
Yeah,
of.
like Rocky, the Rocky movies. Yeah, all that competition. I forget about that. Yeah, there was another element of the Cold War in that. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, I remember. I watched the Rocky movies as well.
Oh, that's heavy, man.
Yeah, the Cold War was a great advertising vehicle for both Americanism and Sovietism.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
it truly was. But yeah, but to come back to like regarding like yeah what one puts on top, it's it's also like yeah what society orients itself around and builds towards, and I feel that currently in our modern society it's just lacking that type of center for a lot of people, at least that I've noticed.
In the attempt right now from kind of like World Economic Forum and United Nations seems to be they want to put science at the top of the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
Or the science, not maybe not. Well, they think it's the same thing, but I would beg to differ.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming.
Yeah, but yeah, it seems that yeah.
And then yeah, you look at where the science leads. It leads to again the enframing. You know, the waterfall has to become the dam, and then the human being actually has to become the human being has a mortal lifespan, and that again does not fulfill its potentiality. So the human being also has to transcend that. So where the waterfall becomes the dam, the human being becomes the cyborg.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like this like endless commodification. Ultimately it breaks down societies. It doesn't hold society together. In the end, it breaks down society.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, in the end, from what I'm seeing, also with that is that if you continue that, it doesn't lead um, to anything well regarding like for the individual's psyche. So the psychology behind it is rather horrifying if one looks at it. And if one yeah, it's like how the entire system operates. It lacks in my view, it lacks spirit.
Mm-hmm.
There's there's just no spirit or essence in
It's a machine. It's a clockwork machine at the end
yeah.
of the day. Yeah.
And the thing is that I do think that that's gonna break down because it cannot. I mean, unless it becomes literally the Matrix and it breeds humans to feed into the machine. But in that sense, it becomes like a devouring machine that feeds off humans to fuel itself. But it's
we need some sort of something to defend ourselves against it. Something that we pass on. Like I said, we do with the wheel. We pass that on as a toy, and then it becomes a serious device that helps you in everything that you do, and we just take it for granted. So what do you think between all of the Christian faiths and the Protestants and everybody, you name it, what do you think the wheel is? And even people want to interpret Jesus's role differently, but still between them all, I think there's a central thread, technology story, way of looking at it. And that might be the best that we can do. I mean, of course, there's people that are going to go over fully to this side or the other, but most people are building this wagon wheel.
Well, at the end of the day, Jesus says that he's the way, the truth, and the life, and all Christians do abide by that, and that they hold that to be the ultimate truth. So,
I know, but that what does that specifically mean, though? I mean, I believe that personally, but it took me a long time to find out for myself what that meant. And I would hear people say that and be like, "What does that mean?" And, I'm not getting any help here. I specifically, what does that mean? And so for me, I had to find my own piece about what that means and what people mean when they say that. I had to build a wagon wheel, or I was like, oh, this seems to be the central thing here, but I'm interested to hear what you think that might be that you've seen.
If we if we break down that statement, there's three aspects. So there's the truth, which we can understand intellectually. We can look at the scriptures. We can look at all the wisdom that's been passed down in the Christian tradition, and that's the truth. That's we understand that in the mind. But then there's also the way, and the way is kind of like medic. It's like emulating the way that Jesus lived. So using Jesus as the ultimate figure that we should emulate. Then there's also the other aspect, which is the life, which is that we actually have to live it. So the life cannot be explained simply through words. You actually have to live it. That's a huge emphasis in Orthodoxy. Is that sure, you can understand Christianity in the mind intellectually, and you can also look at Jesus' example and follow that. But there is this third thing, which is the way, which comes through prayer, and it comes through being involved in the church, right? The whole way of life that comes with Orthodox praxis. That is the life, and it's through these three ways that it finally comes together, and then you're like, oh, this is the truth, right? I would say that I've described it in the.
So you have to embody it. You have to embody the practice, not all of the struggles that the church fathers went through to hash this stuff out, and it will give you. It's like a road they've paved, if I'm understanding correctly. And you can walk along it, and you can light your candle to help others upon the path as well. Is that a good analogy?
Yeah.
I'm an analogy person.
Yeah. And the analogy that your example brings to mind is like, let's say there's a destination. Let's say it's a waterfall. And Jesus can tell us where the waterfall is. He can also show us how to get to the waterfall. But unless you actually walk that path and get to the waterfall, I haven't experienced the waterfall yet.
That's good. I get that. I'm following.
Yeah, but talking about that, there's one thing that I had read it's more at the end of the Bible, at the end of Revelation. It talks about New Earth, where John talks about it. And one thing that I've noticed is that that's in the whole like 5D starseed UFO crowd, that that's a very popular thing that keeps popping up. New Earth. They talk about it a lot, and they even though they connected a lot in that sense with like or like more like shamanistic practices in that sense. But I think that that I don't know. It's something interesting that's been popping up, and there's like different individuals on YouTube also. Like Charles Eisenstein is one of them that seems to be like speaking towards that idea in some capacity. like even though like they're not. I don't know if they would call themselves truly Christian, but it seems to be something that's like going around within in that like type of movement, but also the environmental movement. It seems to be like some like currents going on too.
I have some thoughts on this one too. And I think I borrow some of these thoughts from Jonathan Pajot as well, which is that the Christian story, the unfolding of Christian history, is the ultimate hero's journey. And in the hero's journey archetypal structure, what you have is the hero venturing out into the unknown world, crossing the threshold, and then bringing back the boon, reconciling, becoming master of two worlds. So if you look at this tension between pure being, or like being in unity with nature, and then technology, that tension, you could kind of see that symbolism in from Genesis to Revelation as well, where Adam and Eve start in the Garden of Eden, which is this state of being in unity, perfect unity with nature.
True.
Then in the end, it comes back around to the new earth, or the new Jerusalem.
Yeah.
If you look at, New Jerusalem is not the Garden of Eden, right? So it doesn't go full circle and go back to where it started, because New Jerusalem is a city. So it's kind of like so humankind starts out in this pure, natural, primordial state, and it goes through this down into the underworld, or down into the crossing the threshold into technology. It goes all the way down, and then it brings back the boon to reconcile nature and technology again into the New Jerusalem. So it's kind of telling us that it's not about the reason why we had to kind of descend all the way down. It's not to destroy it necessarily. It's actually to bring back the boon and to reconcile. How do we recapture the Edenic state of being? Reconcile that with the technological developments of the fallen world. Yeah.
Kind of like the forest fires, and everything comes back stronger.
Yeah.
It balances the pH and creates new nutrients and all that good stuff. Potassium.
So, we may look at the fallen world as, there certainly there's a lot of evil in it. But at the same time, there is this boon that we're meant to bring back from it.
Yeah.
It could be the internet itself.
Ooh.
Because it's pretty crazy. Do you guys know about these mesh Wi-Fi networks that are solar powered? People are making their own internets. It's pretty crazy. You're just
That's
using
cool.
raspberries. And then if that doesn't work, you can use ham radios to make like a Reddit forum and post stuff, or send emails to each other's radios specifically, and it'll pop up on your laptop.
Yeah, but in that sense, like I think that that in that sense that's something else that I feel is playing out, that like the story towards like the whole new Earth thing is still playing out, even though quite a few people that talk about it might not think they are Christians, or they might not even be Christians in that sense, but it still seems like the story is still being played out.
Yeah, they have good aliens and bad aliens, the Pleiadians and the reptilians. I'm familiar with it.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It is its own mythology, I think, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's on mythology in that sense, but I still see that there's still that undercurrent there, which is somewhat Christian in nature, that still pushes towards the idea of new Earth, even though like what that means for them, or like for them personally, is probably not going to be exactly the same what the early Christians meant with it, or what what the church fathers probably would say it means. But there seems to be still that undercurrent there, and
yeah, there's a need for fighting for freedom. They talk about, we're going to fight the reptilian aliens and show them, and we got angel aliens to help us, and they send us messages, and they send us special babies that are genetically engineered to fight evil. Like, man, I've heard it all, and I think you're right. It's going on.
If you don't interpret that literally, you can kind of look at how that's playing out on the spiritual level.
Yeah.
That there's these evil entities that are out there trying to tell us to come down into the underworld with them. And there are these there are these people who are speaking the truth and telling, and here to help us fight off those influences, right?
Totally. I mean, I think that's true. And we could all go into our separate stories, I bet, of our evidence of why we think evil's real, or that people can actually get possessed by demons or archetypes or whatever you want to call them. But there are strange forces out there, other than your personality, or your persona, even. Things that I don't believe are human in any way, shape, or form. People can call them aliens or whatever. I call them demons. I think that people have encountered these things for a long time. Different cultures call them different things. But yeah, there's something going on. I'm heavy into the psychedelic community, and a lot of people talk about getting eaten by a snake, reptile monsters. I had some experiences, and I would fight those things off in my mind and not let it have power over me. But then other people, I don't know, would be like, "Oh, it just ate me. There's nothing I could do. It was part of the trip, man." I'm like, "Okay, dude. I don't know about that. You're having a waking dream. You're interacting with people. You can steer the boat. I've steered the boat. It's not an unsteerable boat. It's just your mind with rocket jets on the back of it, and you're going through your imagination and concepts that you mulled over and thought, and then you do encounter these strange entities, things in the I don't know what Carl Jung would call it, your subconscious or whatever. And some people worship that, and they're like, go talk to the entities, like Terrence McKenna said. But I don't know about all that. I think you can get insights, but people go to these psychedelics and things as like it's the end all be all answer, and you just got to trip and you're better. Like, no, it's a shit that you can steer, and you need a map, and there's a lot of different places you can get coordinates to go visit, and you need to be very careful of where you're plotting your course, man. That's all I got to say.
Jonathan Pajot said this in a podcast once, where in the ancient pagan cults, when they did do ayahuasca or whatever hallucinogens, they did it in a communal setting where there was elders who could lead, and so they did have this map, and they would say, okay, this is the evil spirit, this guy's here to help us, etc., etc. Whereas now it's like, oh, you and your friends in a basement and just go talk to whatever elves appear. I mean, that's
very bad.
It is.
I think the hippie festivals I went to were great because there were these elder people. There were these old people from the 60s that went to Woodstock, and they're like, oh, man, you don't want to do that. Or, oh, hey, man, you need to get him outside of his tent and walk him around the creek a little bit. He'll be okay. And, these things work, just these simple little things. And they would always be going around like, did you wash your hands? Wash your hands. Put some hand sanitizer on, because, everybody camping out. They don't want to keep themselves clean. So they're like, you damn dirty hippies, we're going to party. You're going to make sure none of us get dysentery. So they were guides. They made sure everybody was doing the right thing and being responsible.
Yeah, but in that sense, like that's very very important with those things, that you know exactly what you're doing, and that's why, like, yeah, that's why you have like the shamans, priests, and such people guiding those things in the first place. It's to know exactly how to interact with the different things you encounter. And I
Yeah,
mean,
it's
mhm.
interesting that people got their own little wagon wheel that I've seen other communities share, and they've got their own type of plow technology in their, let's call it, religious community. There are some aspects of the hippie community that are still cultish, of course, but I think most of it is just like people trying to get healed. Like you were saying earlier, what the Orthodox Church is trying to do. I think other people are trying to build their own hospitals, their
Hmm.
their own mental hospitals to try to address different things, and they're bearing varying degrees of fruit that are bitter and sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry to cut you off, man. Go ahead.
Yeah, but in that sense, if you look at it, at all of that, because I've been lately talking to some traditional shamans, and from what I've learned from them is that the shaman in training um, needs to be taught exactly by the former shaman, so the teacher, their mentor, exactly what's up, what, like, uh, these are these spirits. You don't want to mess with these. These are these spirits, and exactly like how you put it. And the thing is, that's very key, because otherwise you do not know what you get yourself into. And the thing is that, in with regards to the, like, people worshiping like those entities, yeah, that's that's not gonna end well. The same thing with archetypes, or like things like that. You have to be careful of what you put at the top of the pyramid, because it's one thing that I've noticed from my own experience, that you want to be very careful with that, because, like, in that sense, what you worship, you become.
Yeah.
Yeah, you remember when that Joker movie came out and everybody was worshiping Joaquin Phoenix? Like they were wanting to embody that resentment. I
Mm-hmm.
remember seeing everybody get way into that, and as you say, put it on the highest. I'm not saying, yeah, is that the correct terminology? That was the biggest thing that they were focusing on. They were like, "This is the best." This guy, and all the memes just came from everywhere about the
Yeah,
Joker.
but the Joker, in that sense, is the trickster. The trickster balances out the structure of order that has been established. And in that sense, them trying to, like, go with that resentment, the Joker, in that sense, is an represents an archetypal embodiment of that resentment, and the overall need for more space. There needs to be a balancing between the persona in that sense, and the contents of the shadow, the repressed parts of the self, and also the
And this is
dark
also
parts.
something, reminds me of something that we talked about a couple of years ago. I think this is actually the first time that you and I talked, Basarius.
Yeah,
It was about the Jonathan Pajot. Oh, it's about the Frog Prince,
yeah, the
wasn't it?
frog. Yeah,
Yeah. So the frog is kind of like the Joker figure. He
yeah,
dwells and relishes in the pond, the underworld. Then he goes down to retrieve the golden ball, right? Which is like of like that thing that we're all seeking.
yeah.
But eventually, the Joker can't just remain in the pond. He has to become the prince to kind of kind of complete the hero's journey, right? To kind of bring
Mm-hmm.
back the boon. Yeah.
Yeah, in that sense, yeah. And
But yeah, I think right now a lot of people are in the frog phase. from Pepe, either whether it be Pepe or the Joker or any kind of like revolutionary spirit. That's all the frog. That's all the attempt to retrieve the golden ball.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess the frog. Well, the frog did think about becoming a prince, but I guess one of the problems with many of the frogs that we have now is that they're not really thinking about what do we do after we retrieve the golden ball. How do we bring that back to the castle?
Yeah, in that sense, yeah. But I feel that a lot of people are very like unconscious about like what is going on. Because the thing is, like, they just don't know. It's not really their fault that they don't know, because there's like nothing in the culture that like would tell them anything really about that in a deeper level. But that's really what I've been feeling. It's like you have here the political system and the system that we have, the devourer, the technological devourer. Archetype in that sense. The hero is supposed to like break free from that. That's what the hero is about. And the thing is that that's kind of where I feel like we're stuck in, and there's also that resentment going on, because the hero and the trickster are in that sense, there's a relationship between the two, because the Joker figure and the hero, they're two coins, or like, yeah, they're two sides of the same coin. And the thing is that you need a bit of both to like balance it out. But in the end, you need the trickster's purpose would be to break free from the societal constraints, for the sake of updating it, for the sake of making them healthier, to create space. It's like
right. I think we used to have a healthier relationship with the Joker. If you notice, clowns used to be a funny thing. Why have they become scary? Insane clown posse, the Joker, all of these, the killer clowns from outer space.
Yeah.
It's because we don't respect the Joker anymore. We don't respect the clown. We don't give them a place in society anymore. And look at what's happened to stand-up comedy. It's been eviscerated, and it's been coming for a long time. This airplane food. Am I right? I mean, it turned into something that's not real a long time ago. And what happened to the comedians, to the creative people? They became resentful. They were pissed off. They don't have a job. They're not getting paid. They don't have a place in the tribe anymore. So I think we need to reestablish a healthy relationship. Give the Joker a job. If you notice in the movie, that's all the fucking guy wanted. He just wanted a job. He just wanted to get paid. And everybody made fun of him. He's like, great, make fun of me, but give me a paycheck. And what happened? He's just a disgruntled worker, man. He just needs a place.
Mm-hmm. But in that sense, I've started to dig deeper into like the tribal roles and also personality types, and like the temperament of people. And what I've started to find is that it seems to be divided into basically the tribal core that is trying to be like the embodiment of what you're trying to strive for, with like the you would call like something resembling the clergy, or something along the lines that like lay out the mythological structure surrounding it. With then on one side you have the enforcers of that structure. Then you have the like basically the trickster archetype, and the artists, the people who explore the unknown on the other hand, end of it. And there's a tension between the order types, the one that are very like rigid and want to build up like a certain, like, the structure of society, and then the ones on the other end that want to just break all the rules. And we used to have the mediators, how I ended up calling them, on the other end of it. And the thing is that the mediators, or like the priests, you could call them too, or and different people who fulfill similar functions. They would mediate between the order enforcers and the unknown explorers, so the artists, the Joker type. And they would make sure that there's a space for them to do their thing in a constructive manner, something that contributes to the higher goal, to put that in good
we were running like clockwork. Everybody was a gear, and it wasn't like bad slavery. We wanted to be a gear. Like, yeah, this is kind of what I've been doing with my life. The teeth on my gear are this shape, so I can be over here in this part of the clockwork society and make it operate and do what we need to do, and everybody's getting paid. And I don't know when it changed in America, but that stopped. People are just like, I need you to be this one specific way, the cookie cutter way, the grooming stuff we were talking about in school, the 9 to 5, and all the other people that were like, hey, this is bullshit, and got out of there are the ones that make the money. They're like Harry Potter chasing the snitch instead of playing the Quidditch game. He's chasing that golden little thing, and if he gets it, then he wins the whole game. They have a similar thing in this book I really liked, Ender's Game. They made a movie about it, where all the other part of the war doesn't matter. Just getting to the one planet, no matter what, even if you can get there for a second, you win everything. Because in that book, Ender's Game, they had like a special death ray laser, and you just shoot it for 1 second, and it blows the whole planet up. So I think that's similar. You can play that game, or you can play the long game of get 1 point at a time, and play with a team, or strike out on your own, risk a whole lot of failure. But if you get that snitch, man, wow, everybody's gonna be talking about you.
But in that sense, the what I call them the unknown explorers, or the ones that would go outside of the tribe, also, that they would be the ones that would explore and find new resources. They would go with the and they had their particular function. Is basically what I'm trying to say. And the thing is that the particular function they were fulfilling, different people, was based on who they are, not the cookie cutter way. And I think that's like a very big part of it. It's too, or like in that sense, it became too like empty and rigid, and it doesn't really allow for the fullness of a person's being to be like to come out and be in a Christian society. You could say be use their gifts for God. You could wager.
And maybe in this analogy, it's like, or maybe not even the analogy, but when you have a tribe, you do have to send some guys out to. There's certain personality types that develop in every social setting. Like even in families, there's like the black sheep of the family. There's the artist, right? When you have this whole family of accountants, and then you have one artist, and it's like there's two ways that the family can deal with that. One is to force the artist to become an accountant, which doesn't work. Eventually, the artist will come to resent the family, and even when he inherits the family, what is he going to do? He's going to flip the tables. Or you create a space for this artist to go and venture out and bring back a boon from the unknown world. And so maybe that artist goes out and discovers a way of reconciling accountancy with his art or something, and brings that back, and then that enriches the tradition of the family. So, and you bring this up to the societal level, it's the same thing, where if you don't allow people who are kind of have that jokerish personality go out and venture out and bring something back to society, and then it's going to come back. Then they're going to come back as enemies rather than as tribe members.
Yeah, is that kind of how the Orthodox Church sees the fallen world, as I've heard people say, that it might bring something cool out of it for them going, like, in other words, it's kind of like the fringe. It's like you consider the fallen world the fringe society, not near the center. For the sake of argument, where the campfire is at, where the warmth and the light is. Here's these people over here doing cell phone TikTok land, and maybe something cool will come out of it. I don't know, but we're gonna be here whenever they change their mind.
Well, you look at the Orthodox community going throughout all of history. You have certain people, you have saints, you have people who very much lived a very, very devout life. Then you even have saints that didn't live such a devout life for a long time, such as Saint Moses the Black, who was initially a marauder and like a barbarian. He raped and pillaged villages, but then later he came across a monastery, and then he converted to Christianity, and then he lived the rest of his life as a monk. So you have these you have this broad range along the further out you go into the margins. At the closest to Jesus, you have these very devout saints, monastic monks, etc. And then you also, further out in the fringes, you have these barbarians, or you have these emperors who probably did a lot of bad things as well, and then later in life they come to Christianity, they come to Christ, and then they die for their faith. They become canonized that way. So you can look at it as God had to allow for these margins in order to have this kind of broad, rich range of different ways that people come back to God. Otherwise, you would have the cookie cutter. You would have everybody be a monastic monk, and then
That's a fascinating perspective I've never considered before.
and
I mean,
if
from
only
an
if
Orthodox
only
perspective.
if only monastic monks were true Christians, then what hope would there be for everybody else?
Right. Yeah. What was that dude's name? What the Black? That's an
Saint
interesting story.
Moses, yeah, Saint Moses the
Saint
Black,
Moses the Black. That's fascinating. I'm
Egypt,
going to
I
have to look
believe.
into that.
But yeah, I
Because
think
I've
that's
seen those stories of evil people coming to that, and then also vice versa, good people becoming evil. It's the transitions are interesting, and it drives our story forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think that the whole cookie cutter and not allowing for anything to be outside of it is something else that I've started noticing too, and it's like the Netherlands, for instance, is like a good example of this. Is that they have taken this push for technological control to such an extreme that they do not even allow for nature to just exist outside of the realm of society. They in that sense, they've become that rigid that they control everything in that manner, and I think that not allowing for something like to be outside on the fringes in its entirety in whatever manner is something that then eventually just leads to bad shit to go down. I mean, in that sense, like God allowed there to be something outside of the walls of the garden. Similarly, with New Earth, there's something. There's you have the 12 gates and you have the wall around it, but there's something outside of it. But it's needed to be there to have.
Have you guys seen Jonathan Pageau's 666 Symbolisms series?
No, I haven't. I've seen a lot of his videos though, but I missed that one.
Okay, yeah, it's easy to find. What he talks about in there is also 6 being this symbolic number for the attempt of man to account for everything.
Ooh,
And it
that's
doesn't.
deep.
The problem with it is that it never accounts for the margin, because God created the world, and then on the 7th day He rested. So there's always something beyond the 6, but mankind is always trying to encapsulate everything inside 6, and um and try to not leave any margin. If you look at science or technology,
Yeah.
as we talked about
What if
earlier,
on the
or
7th day he played some music, or I don't know, did something really cool and creative in another way?
yeah, on that 7th
I'm
day is
spitball.
it's kind of like um the human aspect, or yeah, the personal aspect, right? um and so this is the problem with mankind, and all the systems that it tries to create, is that it tries to encapsulate everything. So every time there's a margin, it tries to say, oh no, that's not a margin, bring it in. So it looks at things like transhumanism, which is, or any kind of fringe movement, and says we need to include this, because otherwise it's outside of our empire. It's outside of our margin.
Mm-hmm.
We can't accept that. So it has to bring in every single fringe thing and say, oh no, but this is actually
Oh,
this,
wow.
we have to include
I
them.
didn't realize
It has to be
that.
all
That's
inclusive.
heavy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, in that sense, I think it's a very big problem, not just like on the fringe, but within modern society in general. It's just that tendency to not leave any space for that margin to just be there on its own, doing its thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like, okay, so this is what comes to my mind when you just said all that. You have a central city with all the lights and everything's working properly and people have it figured out, and they're using the wagon wheel and they're moving stuff really well. But outside the city, you have these groups of people that, for whatever reason, they just cut down trees and use logs to move stuff. It's a lot harder. It doesn't really make any sense. But maybe they'll figure something cool out. I don't know. But we're gonna stick here to this wheel that we figured out and read from these books that people said works, and you guys do that, and if it's cool, we'll take this satellite idea and integrate it and make the city better. Otherwise, the city can't flourish. That's kind of the image I'm getting from what you said.
Yeah, yeah. And if you look at the modern viewpoint, it's like, oh, look at these Luddites using logs. We better go teach them. We better go show them the wheel. And then you guys aren't being efficient enough. Stop it. It's a and then it's just like, oh, you guys you're slowing down human progress now. And it becomes this like antagonism.
Yeah. Meanwhile, these Luddites might be 7 feet tall and their arms as big around as a log. They have a different kind of way they went. That's not stupid. It's not bad. It's just, it's different.
I guess there is this kind of there always is going to be a tension between inside the walls and outside the walls.
True.
Maybe. Because, yeah, I mean, if we go back to the Luddite metaphor, okay, maybe they are just doing their own thing right now. But suddenly people in the city are seeing how the Luddites are living, and they're saying, oh, I kind of like that, and I don't really like what's going on in the city, so I'm going to move out and join them. Then it becomes a threat to the city. So that's another
Oh,
problem.
yeah, it does. Because everybody wants to get out and roll their own logs and get super ripped and forget impressing their boss and forget about, even going to college. People are really into that's interesting. Yeah, that is. It's very bad. I went to university wide-eyed and hopeful when I was 16, like I said. And what was great about it is you were allowed to be whoever you want, and you didn't have to raise the hand to go to the bathroom. But I wasn't really learning anything there. I found a much more enriching experience out on the open road, out interacting with people, job opportunities. Hey man, you did a good job on this. Do you want to come work here and do this? So I don't know how you can make the city, so to speak, more rewarding, or the university, or that path, the city path, Go to school, go to college, get a job, get married, blah, blah, blah. There's a bunch of stuff that's gone wrong. It's not rewarding anymore. It's more rewarding to take off with the Luddites and hang out with the other group next to them and just see what else is out there. There's the opportunities out there. I don't know how to get the opportunities back in the city.
Well,
yeah.
In that sense, like what that represents, and also with like Pepe, the Joker figure, and all those like trickster like figures, what it kind of tells a city in that sense to stick to the city would be that somewhere we're being too rigid. Somewhere there's something that we're doing that's not allowing for something that they find over there. And you have to figure out like how to like rebalance it to like find what you've lost, because you've lost something in that sense.
Or even bring it back, because people aren't bringing back the wisdom from outside in the Luddite area. They're staying. They're like, we're not welcome back here. There's not a place for me here. I don't know how I can live on with these people. That's how I feel anyway. And I think a lot of other people kind of share that sentiment.
Yeah.
And you look at some of the internet spheres that we hang out in, or I hang out in, I guess.
Yeah. Like, you got to come here.
It's like, screw the normies, they're far gone. There's no way to kind of reconcile. So we just hang out in our little echo chamber, and we'll do our own thing.
God knows how far away we are from even the Luddites. What campfire we're at here in the middle of nowhere in the woods, talking together.
Yeah. And so it kind of works both ways, where Joker figures do have to see themselves as eventually returning, right? Eventually, not only just retrieving the golden ball, but bringing it back to the castle.
Mm-hmm.
Or bring back to the princess.
Yeah.
And then the princess has to look at it as, this frog is not just a frog, but it's actually a hero. It's a prince in disguise.
Right.
Mm-hmm. But that's about restoring or like bringing something back to the order to restore it, and yeah. In the story, the princess, or like how Jung would have put it with as the anima. What I've learned more since that talk is that it should be seen in the Jungian context as the relating function. So it's basically the symbolic the symbolic meaning making function of the individual and society. That's where the input goes towards. And they have to do, and the people representing that, they have to do something with it, to incorporate it into the structure and update it with it.
Yeah, absolutely. We need some kind of circuitry in our Western society to process these fringe ideas. We need something, because there's money to be made. There's things to do. It's not like they're just a bunch of loser artists or whatever. They're wanting to desperately create something, and it would help if the city, so to speak, would be like, oh, look, this is the direction we're going in. But it just feels so aimless. Say, for instance, we all decide we're going to go to Mars, and we're like, this is going to be our new big, great project, and let's do it all together, and everybody gets involved. That could be our basilica, our great pyramids, or whatever. You know what I mean? We need a project. We need an interactive project together to do that would benefit everybody.
Yeah.
One of the problems with technological projects will be that we might encounter the same problem, where we actually have to become more clockwork machine in order to accomplish the goal. So we do have to be careful when it comes to another technological project.
Mm-hmm.
But I think also through the Christian lens, there's also an answer that everybody can kind of relate to, which is love. which is that it's very difficult. Even within our own families, we have relatives that we don't particularly get along with very well. It's very difficult to love them, right? But the family ethos is the call to kind of um be able to at least overlook some of that and to still remember that this might be your racist uncle or your uber liberal uncle or whatever, but he's your uncle. He loves you. He kind of has an unconditional love for you. And wouldn't it be Hasidic or cozy if you could um, have that love for him as well? And this is what Christianity calls for all people to do: is to you in life you're going to have enemies. You're going to have people who hate you, who spit on you, who try to destroy you. And that was true for Jesus as well.
Mm-hmm.
But what Jesus is saying is that um, also a love that can still be had between people who even despise each other. In that you can always relate because we have a common experience as human beings made in the image of God. Or even in a secular sense, we do have a common experience as human beings. We're able to communicate with one another. We're able to a lot of us have same primal concepts such as love and community and tribalism and desire and everything. All of these things are things that we hold in common as human beings. And so there has to be this empathy first, and it's
Yeah.
not going to be easy. Christians don't say it's easy, but that is something that we can remind ourselves that, yeah, you're a far left extremist, I'm a far right extremist, but that doesn't mean that we're completely alien to one another. And I ultimately, in a certain sense, the reason why I hold my viewpoints is because I actually want something good for you as well. You and I disagree on what is good, perhaps, or how to get to what is good. But I think at the end of the day, we both want something that we see as good.
Mm-hmm.
That's what can bring us together.
I've been witnessing that very same thing happen in my town since we've been doing these events. People that, that I don't get along with, they don't like me either, are putting themselves forward to help do this, help do that, and it's for the sake of the town. For the sake that is now becoming the highest thing on people's minds. The thing to focus on is, I know you think this way and I think that way, but this would be fun. This would be great for everybody. People would get something out of this. And I think localization is probably the biggest thing. Like, you're just near me. I need to learn how to live with you. We're all going to be seeing each other often in the stores here. This is a small town, and people talk.
I think innately we also all feel that feeling when we are able to accomplish this. So, was it World War One or Two where the guys got out of the trenches on Christmas?
World
soccer.
War One.
Yeah. How
And
cool.
how cool. Like that coziness when you just think about that. And it's like bitter enemies who are about to kill each other. Well, let's put things aside and just play soccer on Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And we feel like that there's something good about that, wholesome. And I think a lot of us in the modern world, we try to deny that. We actually actively try to deny that.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're continuing trying to summon these demons, and these demons kind of summon the demon. You have to have this resentment. The only reason the demon is being summoned is because of resentment. So the demon obviously feeds and lives and sustains itself off of this resentment. And it's like, if we could just push that demon aside, we could.
I think it's so powerful that we develop this idea of a conscientious objector in war. I don't know if you guys have seen this movie. It was Hacksaw Ridge. It was about this dude that didn't want to use a gun in World War II, and everybody's like, "You're crazy. You got to have a gun." He's like, "I'm not taking a gun. I'm going to be a medic, and if you don't want that, then I don't know what to do." Then they were going to punish him and all this stuff, and he had to go through a court, a military court, and they were like, "Why are you doing this?" He's like, "It's not Christian. I'm not going to take anybody's life." And he said, "If I see an enemy soldier, I'll save their life too." And they're like, what are you talking about? You can't do that. And so he won his court battle. I wish I could remember his name. It's a true story. And he got sent over to this god-awful island, in the Pacific War or during World War II. And he didn't shoot anybody, and he saved people, and he even saved Japanese soldiers. And he didn't get killed. So he proved you can serve very effectively. In fact, more effectively if you don't have a weapon and you're a medic for specific jobs than anything else. And in fact, some of the Japanese soldiers saw this guy helping other people, and they didn't shoot him. They let him go when he was trapped in these tunnels. So I thought that was a relevant thing.
Yeah.
This Christian spirit, because he was a Christian, it has won. People, and then it kind of went into the everybody dodging the draft. The draft dodgers. They didn't want to fight in somebody's war that had nothing to do with them.
Yeah. And that same Christian spirit is exhibited throughout the entire history of Christianity, starting with Jesus. Jesus rides into Jerusalem, and they think, oh, here comes our king. And he goes up on the cross, and everyone's like, oh my God, we lost. It's over. And it turns out, no, that was actually the ultimate victory. The act of sacrifice, is what the entire church was built on.
Yeah, and it instilled this kind of forever guilt on us that I think kind of woke us up. Maybe we weren't feeling guilty enough. I don't know, but
it became this way for us to recognize our kind of unworthiness, right? Because he sacrificed himself for us sinners, for us, fallen, broken beings.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's worse than that. He let us torture him, and he didn't like open his Superman laser eyes and cut everybody in half and, be like, Superman or something. So yeah, it's horrible what happened. Yeah. So worst thing that ever happened, but also the best thing because, he didn't get mad. He forgave us.
And then there was this continued tradition of martyrdom, especially in early Christianity when the persecutions came. And it was like, at the moment it looks like, oh, we're getting destroyed here. But it only made our faith stronger. It only inspired us to be more faithful. So So I think it comes to this, like, once again, it becomes to this you can either be stuck in the frame or you can kind of find a way to transcend the frame, break the frame.
But then I wonder, like, in our modern setting, like how would like one do that, break the frame or transcend it in that sense? Because I mean that's kind of like the way out.
We would say love. We would say maybe another way that modern people that's more digestible to modern people is compassion. And compassion itself can be taken into misdirection as well. You can could be perverted, definitely.
Yeah.
But it comes down to this recognition about we're different, but we're not entirely different,
Yeah, it's something that I started to realize. I don't know. It's like it's not like a year. Is it now a year ago? I don't know. Something along the lines of a year ago, or a bit less than, or like, yeah, a bit less than a year ago, something like that. That I started interacting with people on the other side of the political spectrum, and actually not talking about politics, but just talking to them as people. And the thing is that kind of snapped me out of a lot of the whole, like, view of the endless meme war against the far left and all of that stuff. It's like it's kind of like and especially once I learned like what they went through, and because like, hey, I recognize that. It's like maybe we don't agree, but like I can at least show you like compassion in that sense. And that's what I've been trying to do.
Quite often I actually recognize that if I hadn't read one or two books or gone down one or two different rabbit holes, I would actually be one of them. Because in 2001, I hated George W. Bush. I was very much against, and I still kind of dislike George W. Bush, for the record, but but I was very much sympathetic to a lot of the things that, you know, far left people are protesting about, that aspect of American government, right? So if I hadn't suddenly took a different turn than them, then I would still be where they are. And actually, even later on, when there was the whole like kind of space communist movement coming out of the Zeitgeist films, right? I was on board with that too. So somewhere along the way, we took different turns. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
And so I used to be very liberal too, and then I made a sharp turn and started hanging out on the other side of the tracks with conservative people. And to my surprise, they were extremely welcoming and great, wonderful, nice people. Not at all like my, left-leaning friends told me. Not at all true. So there's a lot to be gained through friendship. I actually got into a pretty big argument today on Facebook. I like to be in all kinds of different groups and just talk to people, hear their ideas. And I'm in this heathen Viking group, right? And they posted this really bad picture of Jesus, making fun of him. And I just said in the comments, I said, it's apparent how many of you are lonely and don't have any friends, because if you say this stuff to people in public, they wouldn't have anything to do with you. And I put a little GIF of, Ragnar and Athelstan hanging out together, like that Vikings TV show, which is the primary reason everybody's into this heathen Thor hammer necklace culture. And the whole theme of that story in Vikings on the History Channel was how Christianity softened the savagery of the Vikings and made them the modern society they are today. There was a lot of kind of like Ragnar having arguments with him and being like, I kind of see a point to this. He saw a point to that. And they had a cultural exchange that changed both of them forever and changed England forever. But, we could debate historically, but in the show that everybody is familiar with, that was the story. And I think it's strange how that just got lost, and people are posting these terrible pictures and thinking that it's like it's a sports team. The religions have become like sports teams, jeering at each other in their groups. It's not going to lead anywhere. Yeah, the Vikings TV show where Ragnar and Athelstan were friends, and I guess I was kind of alluding to that's what we need to do. It's like you think you're gonna go over here, I'm gonna go over here, but let's like talk. Let's try to be friends. I forget why I brought that point up. I had a point, but I lost it.
Yeah, you were saying that it shows how Christianity softened the Vikings, softened the heart.
Oh yeah. They Ragnar was kind of like, maybe I don't need to kill this guy for my ritual. Maybe he's pretty cool. Maybe he's got something to say. And also, they were at a waterfall talking about God and stuff. That's kind of funny because you mentioned a waterfall earlier. Maybe because I did too. But it's a great scene. I love that scene in that show. It was my favorite side story was Ragnar and Athelstan, and them philosophizing at the waterfall. He's like, Athelstan's like, "What's the Rainbow Bridge? Who is Thor?" And then Ragnar would tell him, and Athelstan would be like, "Oh, that reminds me of this story in Christianity." And they're like, "Oh, is it similar? Is it the same place? Are we trying to do the same thing?" And then before they can like go further into that, spoiler alert, stuff happens and they don't get to continue that work, that bridge between each other. But man, when I was watching that, it just was very inspiring to me. I'm like, yeah, this feels right. This is what people should be doing. There was a logos, a dialogue, a true dialogue in the truest sense of the meaning of the word.
Mm-hmm.
It also reminds me a little bit of the UFC, where you have these guys who are about to go into the octagon and beat the crap out of each other. But quite often after they do that, they hug it out. And then they're like, "Respect, man. We should come train together and all that." So that really, to me, kind
Oh
of
yeah,
embodies the true warrior spirit. It's that, yeah, we have our fights that we have to hash out. At the end, we recognize the warrior, like the commonality between us, the warrior in you and the warrior in me.
right.
Mm-hmm.
And necessity for it, and that we can make this pleasant where nobody dies and you can become stronger from the fight instead of dead. And that's something that's important to us as well, to distill something meaningful out of the blood and sweat that we've exerted here.
Yeah, because otherwise the alternative is this eternal "you kill me, I kill you," and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Some people might say, "Oh yeah, but that's cool, right? That's based." But
Yeah,
I don't
they
know.
even made a video game about it, Doom Eternal, the eternal fight against hell, forever.
Yeah, yeah, but I think that's coming back to like compassion and love. I think that it's a very big key in like transcending this entire like framework that we seem to be stuck in, the political framing of our culture and the cultural framing in that sense too. And I do hope that like we could come together in that sense and and put something proper on top of the mountain, or like or the hill, or whatever you want to call it.
One thing I think that the beauty of this is that it doesn't require a huge top-down political revolution. It actually requires us doing this on a personal level, to talk to one another,
Yeah.
be the kind of like the light of the world, right? To kind of just show compassion and love to people around us. And if enough of us do that, it's going to just continue to spread. It doesn't require us to all submit to some, you know, Lenin figure and have him do all the work for us. That's not how this one works.
Yeah, yeah, because I don't see it going anywhere. Because the thing is, like, if something like that would be set up, like a Lenin figure, and it was like top down, it's like you'll end up. It's like it's like with the whole pandemic thing with the vaccinated and the non-vaccinated. It's like also a top down approach type of thing. You always get the in and out group in that sense.
Yeah.
If you
I'm
start
gonna
pushing something.
I was gonna make a connection to gaming culture. So you can go into a server and be playing a game, and then you got these trolls, these people just griefing you, just really screwing the game up, and it's no fun for anybody. Eventually, you get rid of them, you separate the wheat from the chaff, you make some friends, and you start scheduling game time together. And then when you get in there, you have the best time, man, because these people are really having a dialogue. Well, what do I need? Oh, the battery's dying. The nuclear reactor's falling apart. I play this submarine game, and you got to all be like a little submarine crew and do everything just right. And if you don't do it, submarine will literally sink. If everybody doesn't have the spirit of Christ in them, so to speak, the submarine will literally sink to the bottom of the ocean. Everybody has to have their best foot forward, work together, communicate quickly. And I think something interesting is coming out of the gaming culture that a lot of people just kind of write off, say they're losers, say they got nothing going on. Maybe that's true for a lot of things, but there's some people out there playing games that distill the best parts of people. And I just wonder when we're going to apply that to jobs. You know, it would be so easy, you know, because basically you're in there and you're mechanically engineering a whole submarine. You know, you're figuring out how much pressure the hull can take. People are doing crazy stuff in video games, and they're not even getting paid. So there's all this brain power, these groups of people working diligently just for the simple pleasure of working together.
That video game subculture is once again the underworld. It's the fringes, and you know they're retrieving the golden ball of cooperation and brotherhood,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to bring that back into the city. And the city is saying, "Oh, but you guys are all racist, misogynists, homophobes. You know, stay there in your gaming culture." And then the city at the same time is trying to take over the gaming culture too.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, but I think that has to do with the fact that there just can't be that margin out
Yeah,
there.
exactly.
You know, that's that tendency that is there, and I think that yeah, that's really needed, like that margin, that space where where a bunch of people can go in deep and retrieve that fucking ball to get it back to the castle and get it over with.
All right. Should we start wrapping up?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, we're going to marathon levels here, but that's great. It didn't
had a
feel like it
blast,
was
though.
almost
Yeah.
3
Yeah.
hours. I'm happy that we could have this discussion with each other. I've gained a lot.
Yeah, me too. Likewise. It's very nice to talk with all of you, and especially like to talk with you again, Jeff.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, it
We
was
always-
great. Yeah,
Yeah. I always enjoy talking to you, Baz. And great. It was great meeting you as well, Neirum.
yeah, man.
Yeah.
I appreciated your orthodox insights. I'm interested in what you guys had to say. I think you've got some good things going on over there.
Yeah, I'm very, very new. You know, I'm just a freshly initiated catechumen. So please forgive me, brothers and sisters, if I misspoke.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's okay. I mean, you'll learn more.
Yeah.
And you'll get better
We're all
at it.
figuring it out, man. We're all figuring it out.
True, we are. Okay, then I would say then this is everything wrapped up then for this
Okay.
episode. Okay.
Yeah, if people want to join my Discord, maybe you could share a link.
Yeah, if you
in the description.
Yeah,
down
in the
below
description.
description.
Yeah. I can post
And
on below.
I'm Boom Shroom on YouTube.
Yeah, I'll add
This
you
game is
too.
older.
Yeah. Now I'll make sure to add both links. If you just if you send me the link to yours, yeah, then I'll make sure it's in. Okay. It was nice talking to everyone.
Yeah, you too. I'll see y'all. You have a good day.
Yes, you too all. Bye bye.